Welcome, Motenta people. Not many have Julie's kind of vocal control. Her voice drew people out of sadness and plunged them into happiness. Her voice formed a core part of her existence. Why Julie Andrews thought kissing another woman was a great idea? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Motenta's channel. Excuse me, are you Carol Burnett? Lady Bird Johnson asked Carol Burnett. Burnett replied, Yes, and this is my friend, Mary Poppins. The former United States First Lady had just seen the two ladies sitting on a sofa in front of an elevator, in an embrace with their lips touching each other in a kiss. Initially, the First Lady and her itinerary of buff Secret Service men had ignored the two ladies, who had doubled over in rib-racking laughter, but she thought she saw someone who looked like Carol Burnett and had to confirm. The two ladies had fun that moment, with tears gleaming from their eyes from having laughed too much. The kiss wasn't a kiss, at least not in the passionate sense of how kisses could be. It was supposed to be a prank to shock Mike Nichols, who had come late to the function the ladies were doing. Their hotel was also playing host to Lyndon Johnson, which meant every inch of the hotel was packed with dignitaries. As you know, waiting for someone can be tedious. The two women had grown bored of waiting, and they swore vengeance. No, not brutal vengeance, but a shocking fun kind of vengeance. The two ladies dragged a sofa before the elevator that led to their floor. Well, let's be kissing or something, one of the ladies said, mischievously. There wasn't a director to cue them on their little act, but as the elevator made the dinging sound, the two launched quite the performance. But their audience wasn't Nichols, but burly-looking men dressed in suits with fearsome looks in their eyes. The ladies weren't deterred. Their show went on, but Nichols couldn't be seen. Instead, it was the First Lady that walked in on them. Even though they missed the target of their prank, the lady had such good fun that night. But then again, the 1960s was such a good time for Julie Andrews, the Mary Poppins actress, although there was that time when she almost died. The film that blew up her career, Mary Poppins, almost led to the star's death. From playing an angelic magic-flying nanny, the legendary actress would have been set to hang out with the angels. It was that flying that almost did her in. A harness was behind the trick of flying, and the film crew had Julie strapped tightly in one, or so they thought. The bit with the harness was some of the scenes they shot last, and it left the acting goddess uncomfortable, hanging while clutching an umbrella. Sensing a movement in the wire, the actress thought that they were finally letting her down, and told the crew they should do so gently. Just as the crew was letting her down, the ground began to rush up to the actress. She belted out some creative swear words as she began to crash toward the ground, like a ton of bricks. Walt Disney went white with the falling and the swear words he had just learned, or maybe at her near-death experience. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, and the world had joyous moments watching her performance on screen. While Mary Poppins gave the megastar money, fame, and almost death, it also gave her the beautiful friendship she formed with Dick Van Dyke. The two were the leading characters of Mary Poppins, and they were so in tune with each other that convincing people they weren't dating was quite the task. Dick was Julie's first. Dick had been around the screen for a while, delighting audiences with his comedic chops, while Julie had her first acting gig with Mary Poppins. Sure, Julie was an established Broadway star, but acting on screen was a new territory for her. However, her Broadway brilliance earned her the role of Mary Poppins in the first instance. Walt Disney saw the legendary musical actress in her Guinevere role for the Camelot Broadway show, and he knew he had found its star female, although Julie was a silver screen nobody. At that point, Walt was so keen on Julie that he accepted her condition that she would have to see if another project, a live action of a Broadway musical she performed, would use her as their star. Regrettably for that project, they didn't. Also, she was pregnant then and didn't want to harm her baby with rigorous acting. Walt waited for her before and listened to her conditions. She joined the cast, and her first scene was with Dick. While nervous about the scene, she rolled with it and did well. Right from their first scene, the two struck a friendship that would last till Dick died. They were true friends. Julie loved Van Dyke's personality. She described him as dazzlingly inventive, always in a sunny mood. And he made her laugh with his shenanigans, although Dick carried darkness within him. He was an alcoholic. The man battled alcoholism for 25 years, and sometimes arrived on set of Mary Poppins with a significant hangover. But he had great acting chops, even though the dancing made his hangover an even more terrible experience. His co-star had her weakness in cigars, which seemed like a bad idea, considering that she needed her lungs for singing. Their indulgences aside, the two made it work for Mary Poppins, which would become one of the biggest films of the time. No film released within the same period could come close. The flick resonated with both old and young audiences, who continued to troop to the cinemas to enjoy the talent of Julie Andrews. Like Walt Disney, Dick believed in Julie and predicted she would reach great heights as an actress. He was even overwhelmed by her talent, even as he was the more popular talent. Julie had a pitch-perfect voice, and when Dick wanted to record his part of the film, he was constantly reminded of how he was inferior to the musical goddess. His feelings didn't turn into envy or cause a conflict between Andrews. If anything, he appreciated her more, and she him. Just as Dick campaigned to people about her potential, the legendary actress became a shield for Van Dyke. Critics lavished praises on Julie Andrews and described her first attempt at the silver screen as a triumph, both in a commercial and artistic sense. For Dick Van Dyke, it was a hailstorm of criticism, but Julie wouldn't let any stick. She became the chimney sweeper, taking the dark suit of harsh criticisms from her friend. The talented actress revealed her co-star was well aware of his limitations, but instead, he rose to deliver a respectable performance. She said, "He was very aware that he was stumbling about. He was adorable, so talented and charming anyway. So who cares, really?" Certainly, Julie didn't care. The two remained friends until Dick died. They never worked together again on a project, despite having the chance to with the Mary Poppins return. It would have been fun to see those two charm the audience again. Julie Andrews, while she had a pitch-perfect voice, didn't have a pitch-perfect life. Her childhood hovered barely above sorrowful, and she suffered the dislike of her co-stars. Christopher Plummer found the mostly sunny actress to be insufferable and annoying. Out of his dislike for her, he called her Miss Disney. Jealousy much, Mr. Plummer? However, the two would eventually become not just friends, but great friends. Sadly, the beginning of life didn't have this fairy tale type of ending. It all began before she was even born. Her maternal grandmother and grandfather died before she was born. Her grandfather drank and slept around, eventually contracting syphilis and passing away ingloriously. Her grandfather infected her grandmother with syphilis, which also killed her, and also killed her mother's dreams. Julie Andrews' mother, Barbara, loved the arts and longed to become a classical pianist. Sadly, her parents died, and she had to find work to take care of her sister and herself. Hope came when Ted Wells came and married her mother, with Ted even helping Barbara take care of her sister. The couple would have two children, Julia Elizabeth Wells, born on October 1, 1935, in England, and John. But there was a dark secret that Barbara kept and would later reveal. Julia wasn't Ted Wells' child, and her mother kept this secret until Julie was 14. It would have remained a secret if Barbara hadn't been drunk and become loose-lipped. Her biological father tried to develop a relationship with her, but Julie wouldn't let him. She maintained that Ted Wells was the only father she ever wanted. And why wouldn't she? He was the only man in the earliest part of her life that made life sunny. Gloom settled when her mother ran off with Ted Andrews, who she worked for as a pianist. It seemed that Barbara couldn't resist men named Ted. Julia initially stayed with Ted Wells, but after the divorce, she went to her room and her hell began. The sweet, idyllic life she was used to was taken away and replaced with a dirty, rat-infested home, an unnecessarily loud city. Her mom and her new husband also added to the din with their constant fights and disagreements. Her new dad indulged in alcohol constantly, with her mom being his merry drinking buddy. The two would reek of alcohol, and this almost cost the famous actress. Her mother would miss cues that almost jeopardized her life. For instance, Barbara didn't know her husband tried to get her daughter in bed. He tricked her into the bed once to keep her warm, but then tried to take things too far. Julie, the intelligent little girl that she was, would avoid him, but unfortunately, her talent and World War II shackled the two of them together. Ted Andrews was her first music teacher, but when he discovered that his stepdaughter's talent was beyond him, he took her to his teacher, Lillian Stiles Allen. To Lillian, the talented actress would become the next great classical singer. She honed Julie's skills by training her how to sing classically. This would come in handy for Andrews. She began to put her training to use from the age of 9, as she would accompany her parents on their tours. Her parents began to look for a way to exploit her talent. By 12, they had begun shopping her around notable people who could give her a contract. Ted Andrews took her to Val Parnell, the British director who gave Julie a role in the West End revue Starlight Roof. It wasn't enough. Her parents took her to MGM, but MGM passed on the opportunity to sign the young talent, saying the younger singer didn't have the looks for film. She wasn't deterred and would soon find herself singing for royalty at 13. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth were mesmerized by her voice. At this point, Julie had begun to earn, and her earnings were respectable. She couldn't use them for herself, but her parents used the money to pay off the mortgage on their house. Julie moved to America as soon as she clocked 18, and she hit a gold mine. Her introduction to Broadway was The Boyfriend, but her first major act was My Fair Lady, where she played Eliza Doolittle. For a woman who was the epitome of regality, Eliza Doolittle was such a crass character in comparison. Still, she used that opportunity to show her immense talent, even if it didn't please Rex Harrison, who tried to get her off the play. However, unlike Christopher Plummer, they wouldn't eventually become buddies. More roles began to come her way, and she married her childhood love, Walton. Walton was a supportive husband, always looking for how he could help. So when his wife got the Mary Poppins role, he helped design the set, and the film was a resounding success. Even though Julie was snubbed for the film version of My Fair Lady, she didn't regret it. Mary Poppins swallowed My Fair Lady at the box office. Mary Poppins racked up multiple Oscar awards, and it gave Julie Andrews her first award, an Oscar award to boot. Her next film had her crossing into the uncomfortable domain of filming love scenes. The Americanization of Emily had her acting alongside Loverboy General James Garner. While Garner had filmed more love scenes than he could count, he was in familiar territory, but his co-star didn't know how to act the scene with a kiss and all that. As gritty as the actress was, her legs wobbled under her. "Calm down, Poppins. It's just a kiss scene." She probably wouldn't have worried so much if she knew that she would do something more scandalous in the future. Oh, are you curious? Hollywood doesn't like saints, you know. Despite her best efforts, the audience didn't like the Americanization of Emily. They preferred their pitch-perfect actress to sing and dance around the stage in glee. The difference between the audience reception of the Americanization of Emily and her next musical, The Sound of Music, was wide. Interestingly, she didn't know she was going to be the one to play Maria, the lead character. She had felt the show that served as the film's source material was too much on the sweet side. We hope she savored that sweetness, because what came next for her was a hard, bitter pill she had no choice but to swallow: divorce. Hollywood exacts a price for its gift of fame. For the energetic actress, the price was her marriage. Owing to her soaring popularity, she was away from home constantly. This slowly ate her marriage, and before she knew it, she had become emotionally and physically distant from her husband, Walton. They tried to make things work, but nothing worked. The two parted ways, but the sweetness of love would soon return to the legendary actress, and so did a scandal. In fact, it was her next lover that brought that controversy. The actress met Blake Edwards, with whom she shared a therapist, and after a while, Blake said hello when they ran into each other. The first contact led them to date, and they would have married sooner, but the divorce from their previous partners hadn't been settled. The two married, and it took work for them to remain in love. Blake struggled with depression, despite him being a charismatic and hilariously funny man. But Julie wasn't in it for the good times, but the bad. Blake and Julie worked together, and their first work was controversial. Blake wrote and directed the film. It must have been an interesting sight for him to tell his wife to take her top off on camera. By this time, Andrews had become a Hollywood veteran, and some of her initial resistance had gone out the window. When everything seemed to be going smoothly, another sadness struck the actress. She began to notice discomfort in her vocal cords. Thankfully, the growth was non-cancerous, and she wanted to use the time to recuperate. But Blake saw things differently. Blake wanted her to join a tour for the hit Broadway show Victor Victoria, which she was a part of. It was on that show she began to notice the discomfort. So rather than resting, she did the surgery. The surgery was successful. It was successful in taking away the actress's voice. Experts tried different treatments and surgeries, but nothing worked. The actress could speak better, but that delightful voice was no more. After falling into depression, the actress picked herself up in search of a new identity. She became an author of kids' books. At her core, she made people happy. And while her voice went, her words remained. Hollywood actresses often have to go above and beyond to succeed in a role. Why was Julie Garland forced to modify her body? Watch this video.